Catholic commentary.
You're returning a service. What do you want to do?
Spiritual warfare.
A1 clear, see no true.
Stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Jesus 911.
And we are live. We're live on an incredible Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday evening, depending on where you all are tuning in the world. Very happy to be with all of you all and thrilled and pumped because we've got an incredible guest today. We're going to be talking about all things Crusades related. Before we even dive in, I want to give an enormous shout out to the saint of the day, St. Andrew Corsini. May he pray for us. Was a Carmelite friar, became Bishop of Florence, and of course he was very humble, a wonderful, wonderful person, humbler than a friend of mine who claims to be very humble, but really truly isn't. But this was a great bishop, a great saint that we truly love, and we ask to intercede for us. And with that being said, we're happy to be here. All of things Crusades related. There's nobody better than that, than my dear friend Allan Ruhl. My friend, how you been, my friend?
I am I'm doing all right. It's nice talking to you. Currently in the great white north frozen tundra here, hanging in there, in our little police state we got here,
Right.
Trudeau's gone, but Trudeau Jr. is in power now.
Oh, right.
Yeah, his handpicked successor, because his own party threw him out because even they couldn't stand him anymore. So just happy to help. Someone wants to talk about the Crusades. I love the Crusades. I absolutely love the Crusades. I love learning about them. They're very, because the thing I like to study more than anything is medieval history, especially church history. So
Sure.
What's more medieval church history than the Crusades? And it's something that's lied about. If you have people who are constantly saying, oh yeah, this is like the worst thing since you've got the Holocaust and you got the Crusades. No, like, there is a truth behind this, and I had to spend years binging the primary sources. But it's a very holistic vet, and unfortunately most people, including Catholics, learn about the Crusades from this movie that is an abomination called Kingdom of Heaven.
Horrible movie.
Horrible movie, yeah.
Terrible movie. Terrible.
Full of errors.
Yeah, I remember when I went to the theater to watch that movie, and I have limited knowledge compared to you in the Crusades, but I was very bummed out at that film. I walked out very disappointed. Never ever watching it again. A lot of my friends told me, "Hey, hold on, William, give it another chance." I have not given it another chance, and I don't think that I ever will. I was very, very bummed out. I wish we'd get a better one.
Mel Gibson, are you listening?
Yeah, come on, Mel. You got to produce a better one. You're definitely capable of producing one that is better than that. Disappointing. But let me ask you this: if you can summarize, what exactly are the Crusades, and why did they even begin with? Why did they even start to begin with? Forgive me.
Okay, when you think of Christendom, you think of right now you think of Europe and its respective colonies, right? But if you were in the year 600, you would think of Europe. There's no colonies yet at this point, but the Middle East, North Africa, what's modern day Turkey. And what happened is you have the rise of Islam and the rise of an Arab empire, which conquers all of North Africa, the Middle East, and about half of Spain, and then in fact almost all of Spain actually, and then it tried to conquer Constantinople and failed. And after about 100 years of jihad, it's over. You've got the Battle of Tours in the west, the Battle of Covadonga in the west, where they're stopped at around 720, 730. Then you have the failed siege of Constantinople in the east and the Battle of Ardabil in the east. I've read the primary sources on all these battles, and it stopped there. But although they've stopped this jihad, they've conquered a ton of land. And this land, they would slowly peel it back. They would slowly take back parts of Spain, parts of Sicily, uh, parts of Anatolia. And by the year about 1000, they have taken Spain has been they only own about the bottom third of Spain at this point, the Muslims, and in the Byzantine Empire, they are have taken back a lot of land. They've taken back Antioch. They've taken northern Syria. They're on the brink of taking back the Holy Land. Like
Wow.
the empire's expanding again.
Sure.
And of course, what happens in 1071? You have a new Islamic enemy coming on the picture, the Turks, and they come from the east. They're very recent converts to Islam. They've only been converts for about 100 years, so they're not like the Arabs who have been who. So they're these fresh converts, and they start having these battles in the east. You know, you got the Byzantine Emperor Romanus Diogenes
Sure.
doing these campaigns in 1068, 1069. In 1070, he can't, so he sends one of his generals. But in 1071, he goes out there and he has a battle with their Sultan, Alp Arslan, the Battle of Manzikert. And he loses, he's taken prisoner, and he's treated very well, believe it or not. I've read the two primary accounts of that. And but he has to go back to Constantinople and he needs to surrender some land. But he's overthrown in a coup, and then the Turks realize their guy's overthrown, so they invade and they essentially take over all of Anatolia. But they don't just hit Anatolia; they go down, they hit the Holy Land. They're like that area, and at that point, Jerusalem was held by Egypt, the Shia Muslims in Egypt, called Fatimids. They took it from the Fatimids. So at this time, it's about 1080 now. The emperor in 1081, Alexius Comnenus, and I'd recommend everyone read in a book called The Alexiad. It's a biography of him, written by his daughter Anna Comnena. You can buy it at Penguin Books. It's very cheap, and it's a great source. And this source, it talks about, you know, how he becomes emperor. He's only got 300 troops left in the whole empire, and so like he tries some things. He goes along the coast with ships, and he does these raids and skirmishes with the Turks. Those aren't very successful, so eventually he appeals to the Pope. Now pause for a second. This is in
Sure.
the 1090s. In the 1070s, Pope Gregory VII was considering going on a crusade that he would lead himself, because I mean they knew the East was in trouble in the 1070s.
Sure.
So yeah, you can find this in the correspondence of Pope Gregory VII. So what happened at this point is the Pope is in France at the time, Clermont, and he calls a crusade. He well, of course, that's kind of an anachronistic term, crusade. It's a pilgrimage.
Okay.
Pilgrimage to the Holy Land and to save our brothers. And so what happens is they go first they go to meet at Constantinople. There's several waves of this crusade. The
Right.
first wave is the People's Crusade, you know, like farmers with pitchforks who had a lot of zeal, but unfortunately when it came to fighting, they were the first wave, and they went into Anatolia. They raided a couple forts, but once they come up against the main Turkish army, they're just wiped out.
Wow.
And then the second wave comes, and these are actual soldiers and knights, and so they make their way in to Anatolia, and they walk by the pile of dead bodies
Wow.
from the People's Crusade, and they pay their respects, and then they go free the siege of go free the city of Nicaea, where they had the the Council of Nicaea that everyone's heard of. That city was under Turkish occupation. The Crusaders liberated it, And while the Crusaders are doing this, the Byzantine troops are kind of following behind them, doing these mop-up operations. So Nicaea is free now. They engage the Turks. Now, the Turks at this time, some infighting's happening in their empire. So the Crusaders take advantage of that, and like their empire has split into two. So they engage them at a place in Anatolia called Irilium. And after the Battle of Irilium, this amazing battle, the hero is Bohemond of Toronto, the son of Robert Guiscard, who was a famous Norman from the 11th century. If you know him, he's from the investiture controversy.
Sure,
And,
I know who that is. Yeah.
And then they go down to Antioch, and keep in mind, Antioch was a big city back then. Imagine taking an army and trying to attack New York today. That was the New York of that era.
Pretty enormous.
And so, and it's a long siege. They try everything. They try like bribing the guards, because a couple of the guards are Christians. Like, although it's under Islamic control, you still have some soldiers in the empire that are Christian. And then and then eventually they take Antioch.
Well, audience, we have a lot more for you, and we'll return to it on the other side of the break. We're talking about the Crusades with Allan Ruhl. We'll be back in just a moment.
In Luke 7, Jesus said, "I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven her, because she has been shown great love." According to St. John of the Cross, Christians should always remember that the value of their good works is not based on number and excellence. Their value is based on the love for God that prompts them to do the works. May we always be motivated by true love for God, and not worry so much about what we do, but why we do it.
This is a catechetical minute from Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
God is love, and love is his first gift, containing all others. God's love has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit, who has been given to us. Catechism of the Catholic Church, number 733. Everyone who has been given the breath of life has been given a puzzle to solve. To live well and happily is a mystery we try to unravel daily. Love is the answer that solves the mystery of life and unlocks the door to joy. Father, pour out your Spirit upon us, that we may live in the light of your love.
This has been a catechetical minute from Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show, and they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE, US 1.
And we are back, and we're talking all things Crusades related. We promised you in the second half of the show, we're going to dig our hand into the mailbag. Anything you have in your mind, whether it be controversial, maybe you agree with the Crusades, or maybe you don't. We love all of you all. We respect your opinions, and we're here to dialogue with all of you all. We have a phenomenal guest, my near and dear friend, my near brother, Allan Ruhl. He's talking about the Crusades. He is the man for this topic. And before the break, he was diving into some important information. My friend, continue, brother. Where did you leave off?
Okay, we talked about Antioch, how that was like a long siege, and like people start deserting the crusade. At this point, it looks like the crusade is finished. Because keep in mind, I said Antioch was kind of the equivalent of New York. So think of New York with a huge wall around it. And back then they didn't have the technology to do that. You had to scale the wall. They didn't have cannons yet, and certainly not in the West. And what happened was they managed to take Antioch eventually. They claim to have found some relics, like the Holy Lance that pierced the side of Christ, although there's a lot of disputation around that. And at that point, they sent letter to the Pope saying that, oh, we've captured the first seat of Peter, because like a lot of these polemicists from schismatic churches like to say, oh, don't you know that Peter was the bishop of Antioch? Yeah, the Crusaders literally told the Pope that they have Peter's first see now. So anyway, they go down to Jerusalem and they take Jerusalem. It's in July of 1099. And according to Kingdom of Heaven, they said, oh, they killed everyone inside these walls. No, that's not true. In fact, one of the sources I have says that when the whole thing was over, the Crusaders made the Muslims who were alive take out the dead Muslim bodies.
Wow.
Like, if they killed every Muslim, how do the Muslims who are alive take out the... Anyway.
Sure.
That's Kingdom of Heaven crap for you.
Anyway. Quite inaccurate.
Yeah, exactly. And so then they... and then at this point, there's news that an army's coming from Egypt. This is the final battle of the First Crusades, called the Battle of Ascalon. So they send out their army. So they think they're going to siege Jerusalem back from the Christians, but the Christians kind of do a preemptive strike, go attack Ascalon, defeat the Fatimids who were in Egypt, and that's because the Fatimids, I forgot to mention, had taken Jerusalem back from the Turks at that point. And in fact, at one point, they were thinking of an alliance with the Crusaders. Hey, the Turks are my enemy too. Maybe we can work together. No, it didn't work. They wanted Jerusalem. And so they defeat them at Ascalon. They're completely routed. Their army goes back to Egypt. And at this point, they set up the Kingdom of Jerusalem. And there's 4 Crusader states in total at the beginning. And believe it or not, the vast majority of these people, although they've secured this land, they want to go back to Europe. And so they go back to Europe. And then this is where you have the orders of the Templars and are set up, because you need permanent soldiers in the Holy Land. And so you have the Templars, who were formed in 1118. I believe, was it 1118 or 1127? Sometime around there.
Somewhere
I got
around
those
there.
2 dates stuck in my head. Yeah. And so then they and like you also got the Knights of the Hospital of St. John. And if you watched that abomination of the movie Kingdom of Heaven, they do have those 2 orders there.
Terrible movie.
Yeah. So at least they got that part right. Yeah. So yeah, that's the First Crusade in a nutshell. And there's subsequent crusades that don't have a number attached to them. Like there's something called the Crusade of 1101, which is kind of like the last wave of the First Crusade. And yeah, it's a crusade that is like the last wave. At this time, though, the Turks were kind of figuring out what was going on, and so they're a lot more prepared for them. And so they're able to defeat that last wave of the crusade. But the Crusaders have still set up the Holy Land at this point. So yeah, I'm not sure where you would want to go from here. You want to go to second, third, fourth, fifth?
Yeah, yeah. How about we do that? I think that'd be good. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Whatever direction you want to go, whichever ones you think are important for the audience to know. And I'll also urge, thank you, people, for tuning in, and remind people, if you haven't gotten the Virgin Most Powerful Radio app yet, what are you all waiting for? Get your hands on that app so you can hear the show on the go and you can listen to the repeat over and over and over. We are creatures of repetition, and this is an information jam packed show. And I also recommend people in the second half, we're going to dig our hand to the mailbag. So definitely get ready for your questions. Send them in. And I have great news. By the grace of God, soon we'll have that call-in number. But until then, send them in and we'll dig our hand into the mailbag in the second half of the show. Yeah, brother, go ahead and go any direction you want to go. I am learning as well. This is phenomenal.
Okay, I'll quickly cover the Second Crusade because that's not too eventful. So I said there's 4 Crusader states. There's one called the County of Edessa, which is kind of off in the east, and it gets captured by the Muslims in 1147. I want to say 1140 something, and then the Pope calls the Second Crusade. And you have the Holy Roman Emperor. You have the French King Louis VII. He comes there, and they crusade, and they make some bad decisions. Long story short, they don't get Edessa back. So it's kind of a failed crusade. But
Sure.
Crusaders still have Jerusalem, so that's good. It's about the size of Israel today. In fact, it's probably a bit bigger than the size of Israel because it actually went beyond the Jordan. Whereas today, the modern state of Israel stops at the Jordan River. And yeah, no, that's an interesting to point out. Like a lot of times, the pro-Israel people will say, "We're the only ones who established a state there." It's been a part of this empire, that empire, but the only ones who established a state there are the Jews. No, Catholics did as well. Kingdom of Jerusalem, and so where the capital was Jerusalem. So okay, so that's done, and then eventually in the 1170s, the Fatimids in Egypt are falling apart, and you have Saladin, who kind of overthrows the Shia government there and installs a Sunni government. Like if you talk to the Muslims who are hardcore fans of Saladin, it's not just because of what he did to the Crusaders. It's what he did to the Shia Muslims too. In fact, to this day, it's Sunni in Egypt because of Saladin. So now that's in Egypt, and he controls Syria as well, or his allies at the time controlled Syria. And so he goes to war with the Crusaders in the 1170s, and he's largely unsuccessful. And I think it was 1183. Like he lost in 1177 to the Crusaders. King Baldwin IV, the Battle of Montgisart. He lost a huge battle against the Crusaders. Then the Crusaders have a peace treaty with them. They make around 1083, 1084. And then there's this guy, Reynald of Chatillon. He raids one of Saladin's caravans. The king of Jerusalem at this time, Baldwin IV has passed away. The king is Guy of Lusignan.
Okay.
And this guy's not a good commander, unlike King Baldwin. But he tells Reynald to give his stuff back. He's like, go give that stuff back to Saladin.
Right.
That's his stuff. And Reynald says, no, you have no power over me. He kind of declared his lands autonomous almost.
Okay.
And then he goes, and then Saladin goes to war with them because he couldn't get his stuff back. But he said he would not go to war with them if he would get his stuff back. And Guy tried to get his stuff back. So then he invades the kingdom of Jerusalem, and he has an army. And at this point, what they should have done is wait out the army, because his army would have disbanded eventually. But they decided to go to war with him in an area where they don't have a water source, so the army's dehydrated in
Wow.
July. in the hottest region of the world.
Oh man.
Yeah, and so they lose the Battle of Hattin, which is in July of 1087. And so not only did they lose this battle, but after the battle, Saladin executes thousands of soldiers. He
My
takes
goodness.
prisoners some, but he executes 1,000. And at this point, he goes and takes Acre. He starts taking all the land. Then in October, he finally takes Jerusalem. They've essentially lost everything except the city of Tyre. I'm curious, how much time do we have?
We got about 2 minutes. About 2 minutes.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Okay, so Tyre, he tries to take Tyre. He's unsuccessful because of a guy named Conrad of Montferrat. He saves the city in time. He gives supplies, and they throw Saladin's banner in the ditch.
Wow.
Yeah, and so then at this case, eventually news reaches Europe, and the Pope calls the Third Crusade. 4 Christian monarchs respond: William of Sicily, Frederick I, King Philip Augustus of France, and Richard the Lionheart. You have William of Sicily. He's not that far away. He goes and he dies of natural causes very quickly into the crusade, so he can't do much. And then those 3 other monarchs, they go down toward the Holy Land, and both King Richard and King Philip go by ship, and Frederick I goes over land. They have some trouble with this crazy guy in Cyprus. They end up taking Cyprus because of that. Then they go to the Holy Land, take the city of Acre. Unfortunately for Frederick I, most of his army is killed. He drowns in crossing a river going down to the Holy Land, and there's a pandemic where the rest of his army is killed. But they managed to get Acre, and I think I'll pause right here.
Yeah, we should be hitting the break in a moment. For people that are wondering, we are talking about all things Crusades related. Don't forget to get your questions in. We already have a few. In the second half of the show, we're going to dig our hand into the mailbag. We've got a lot more to come, audience. We've got a phenomenal guest, Allan, who his knowledge in the Crusades is second to none. We got a lot more to come in the second half of the show. After the break, we'll be back in just a moment, audience.
Here's a great way to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Do you have an old car you want to get rid of, motorcycle, RV, or boat? Simply call 855-500-7433, and when they sell that vehicle, a portion of that money comes right back to support Virgin Most Powerful Radio. It's an easy way to do it. I want to thank you for it. Call 855-500-7433. God love you and your family. Welcome, Daniel. You're on the line. What's on your mind, brother?
Hi, I just wanted to share a testimony about Virgin Most Powerful Radio. I had a buddy at work who, he's a lukewarm Catholic guy, and I wanted him to start listening to the Terry and Jesse show, so I kept telling him to download the app, and he kept putting me off. So one day, I grabbed his phone, and I downloaded the app for him. I went on vacation, and I kept telling him to listen to it. He was kind of put me off. I came back from vacation. He comes to my cubicle, and he says to me, "Hey, man, I've been listening to Terry and Jesse's show, and it's great." And it's made a big impact in his life. The guy, he's going to weekly adoration a couple times a week. He goes to Mass in the morning. Mm-hmm. He's an on-fire Catholic, and he promotes the Terry and Jesse show in the Virgin Most Powerful Radio.
Daniel, what a testimony. And I want to encourage our listeners to get those cards by going to virginmostpowerfulradio.org and do what Daniel's doing. Go out and spread the faith by inviting people to listen to Virgin Most Powerful. Daniel, thanks for your testimony, brother.
God love you.
You're welcome.
Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites the Terry and Jesse Show. And they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow! That's 80%! realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE, US 1.
And we are back on the air. We're talking about all things Crusades related. And it is a very, very interesting topic. We got a great audience. You guys and people are phenomenal. If you have not yet gotten the Virgin Most Powerful Radio app, do us a phenomenal favor. Snag that app. That way you can listen to hear everything on the go. We're very happy to be with all of y'all. We're back with our phenomenal guest, Allan Ruhl. Allan, you can pick up where you left off, man. This is phenomenal, brother.
Okay, so at this time, the Crusaders finally took Acre. It was a siege that lasted almost 2 years. The French had started it. The few Crusader troops back in the area had tried it, including the king, Guy of Lusignan, who's kind of in a succession struggle. Because Conrad, who I mentioned, is trying to take the title as king, which not too important, but regardless of which, Richard the Lionheart shows up and they take Acre in like almost instantaneously, because Richard was a military genius. And so then, okay, at this time they got the Crusades, and as soon as they take Acre, King Philip II goes back to Europe, but he leaves the French troops there under the Duke of Burgundy. I think it's Hugh of Burgundy, Hugh the Third, I want to say. Still, whoever the Duke of Burgundy was, he leaves the troops there and he goes back to Europe and starts stealing Richard the Lionheart's land.
Wow.
And so, yeah, because keep in mind, England owned half of France at this point,
right,
of modern day France. So Richard, he needs to get Jerusalem now. But he's got a big navy and he's heavily reliant on the navy. So he stays on the coast, and he's on the coast and he's starting to head south because although his army is very elite soldiers, it's a smaller army. It's only about 10,000, whereas Saladin has about 25. His soldiers aren't as good, but he outnumbers them. So the quickest way to get to Jerusalem, where you're the least exposed, is to go down the coast. Then you don't have to be inland as much. So he goes down the coast and he's attacked by Saladin, and he completely routs Saladin.
Wow.
This is called the Battle of Arsuf. He just completely obliterates Saladin's army. It's ugly. So then he goes down, but he doesn't take Jerusalem. He's too reliant on his navy, because again, it's a small army. It's easy to get encircled. That's what happened at the Battle of Hattin. I told you about in the last segment. They got encircled, and keep in mind they made a whole bunch of other mistakes though. And so the point is, Richard takes back all the coastal settlements in the Third Crusade, but he's unable to get Jerusalem back because he can't leave the coast, because his navy is what's keeping him. When he was attacked by Saladin at Arsuf, they weren't able to encircle him because he's on the coast. Now, okay, now there's one more big battle, the Battle of Jaffa, where King Richard is seriously outnumbered, but he still defeats Saladin anyway. And yeah, and if you read Saladin's biographer, Ibn Shaddad, he says how much of a elite warrior Richard the Lionheart was.
Yeah.
And so, long story short, it ends in a truce, a 3-year truce between Richard and Saladin. Richard has to go back to Europe to defend his lands against Philip II, and so he leaves. Unfortunately, he's kidnapped and he's thrown into uh, jail, and then they had to ransom him in England. And Saladin, about 6 months later, he dies of old age, and then his kids like start like a faction war, and the empire is really weak at that point.
Wow.
So it's interesting what would have happened if he'd have stayed. So
Sure.
he go so the truce. He goes back to Europe. I'm curious, how much time do we got in this segment?
You got a little bit of time. Let me see. We still
Okay,
have
all right.
yeah,
I'll
you still
start
have
on
some
the
time.
Fourth Crusade.
Yeah, you got some
Sure,
time.
I'll start on the Fourth Crusade. All right, so in 1198, we got a new pope, Pope Innocent III, and he calls the Fourth Crusade. Now, at this point, Richard the Lionheart is actually still alive, and he was expected to lead this crusade, but he's in a siege. He got injured. The surgeon screwed up. Like he got hit by an arrow. The surgeon screwed up, and it became gangrene, and that was the end of Richard. Um, so then some crusaders at a tournament in Champagne start getting ideas of a crusade, and then they go down. They're trying to find a port, because if they're in central France, they don't have ships, right? So they need to hire a fleet. They go down to Venice, and they hire a fleet, and like a huge fleet, like that's a fleet that's supposed to take like 33,000. I think it's supposed to be 33,000 yeah, 33,000 people and 4,000 horses. So like huge fleet.
Wow, that's enormous.
And yeah, the Doge of Venice, who's like the king of Venice, he commissioned the fleet to like the whole city had to work on the fleet. That's how much it is. But and while this is going, they're sending out preachers to preach to Europe. Hey, come down to Venice. You can get the crusade in Holy Land. Their plan was actually to go to Egypt first,
Okay.
to take Egypt, but they kept that a secret. But they didn't end up getting to Egypt or the Holy Land for that matter. The point is, not a lot of people show up in Venice. Only about 10,000 people show up. That's only about a third of the. So people had to take out extra cash and give everything they got, but they only come up with about half the money. And so at this point, the Doge of Venice is like, okay, you owe me half the money, and it looks like no more people are going to come. You got to help me take this city that I'm fighting over with the king of Hungary, the city of Zara, which is the modern day city of Zadar in Croatia. So they take it, and the Pope is furious, because not only is that a Christian city, but it belonged to the king of Hungary then, who was under a crusader vow himself. So not
Wow.
only have you attacked Christians, you've attacked fellow crusaders.
Sure.
So at this point, he suspends the indulgence, and the whole crusade is excommunicated. And so then the French, there's two parts, the French and the Venetians. The French send an envoy to the Pope and say, we're sorry, we had no other choice, blah, blah, blah. So he unexcommunicates the French part of the crusade only. The Venetians are still excommunicated for now. And so they've taken the city, and then they start communicating with this exiled Byzantine prince, Alexius IV. His uncle, Alexius III, there's a lot of Alexiuses in the story, so
I could tell.
bear with me.
Right, yeah, go ahead.
His evil uncle, Alexius III, overthrew his father. And by the way, his father was Isaac II, the same guy who sided with Saladin during the Third Crusade. But that's another point. The point is that they threw Isaac II in the dungeon, but Alexius IV was able to escape out west. And he's trying to find some help, an army to go take Constantinople back, because he's the rightful heir, at least according to him. And so he runs into the Crusaders. He's like, hey, if you put me on the throne, I'll give you a ton of money that'll pay off all your debts. I'll join the crusade. I'll send a bunch of troops to help you take Jerusalem from the Muslims, and it sounds like a really good deal. So
Sure.
and so they're like, oh, let's do this. A lot of them were kind of nervous, but at this point, it's a broke crusade. They have no other options. So they go to Constantinople, and um and then eventually, okay, the French are positioned outside the land walls. The Venetians, since their ships, they're in the Golden Horn, and they attack the city. And Alexius III is so paranoid, he's scared, he flees the city. So at that point, there's no leader. He's out there somewhere. So they allow Alexius IV to come in, and he's crowned as king, and he frees his father from prison. And they said, father, it's like, and so they kind of rule as co-emperors. And they're like, okay, the Crusaders helped us get our crown back. Now we owe them all this cash. And they're like, that's a lot of cash, but since they got us back on the throne, we'll honor this. So they pay them about half the cash, which is about 100,000 whatever currency they used at the time. So they that saves them a ton of cash. But then he can't come up with the rest of the cash. And so the Crusaders are helping him secure the towns around Constantinople too, because keep in mind, a lot of the empire is still loyal to his uncle. And then eventually he starts to ignore the Crusaders. And so he starts to not like the Crusaders. But the people of Constantinople don't like the Crusaders either, and they don't like Alexius IV because he's the one who brought the Crusaders. And so eventually, during the night, sometime in January or February, there's and around this time, Isaac II, his old frail dad, had passed away. There's a coup in Constantinople where they overthrow Alexius IV, throw him in jail, and poison him, and replace him with another guy named Martsophilus. That was his nickname. His real name's Alexius. I know there's a lot of Alexius.
I was going to say, there are plenty of them, yeah.
Yeah, he's crowned as
I hear the music. I hear the music. Audience, we have a lot more for you on the final part of the show when we come back from the break. But we'll also be digging our hand into the mailbag for any questions you all may have. We are very excited to continue. We'll be back on the other side of the break.
Hey, Terry Rodriguez. I'm a monthly donor here in Phoenix, Arizona. Retired Phoenix cop. And I've met Jesse before. And I just want to tell you guys were on fire yesterday on the Terry and Jesse show. You guys were on fire. I went to bed thinking, man, what an unwinnable war. But when I got up, I listened to you guys. You know, you guys are doing good work, man. You're doing God's work, and keep doing it. I know it gets exhausting sometimes, but there's people out here that really need the inspiration and evangelization that you guys are giving us. So my best to you. And I'm Eddie Rodriguez. I'm a monthly donor and proud of it.
Help the Helpless, a Minnesota St. Paul nonprofit organization chaired by Father of Tear and volunteers, is humbly asking you for your kind support to help the poor and the handicapped children in India and Ecuador. Through financial support from the Help of the Helpless benefactors, the children are provided with clothing, food, education, shelter, and the teachings of the Catholic Church. The mission is to help children thrive and become self-sufficient young adults leading productive lives. We also provide aid to poor families in Ecuador with food baskets, medicines, medical assistance, and help with funeral needs for the deceased. The work in India is done by Father Antonio's organization, St. Mary's. In Ecuador, the work is being done by the Servant Sisters of the Home of Mother. You can call us at 877-762-4644 8857. To learn more, please visit our website, www.helpthehelpless.org. God bless you. Buying or selling your home or your business property? This is Terry Barber. Real Estate for Life underwrites The Terry and Jesse Show, and they can connect you to one of 900 pro-life real estate agents around the world. And when they receive their referral fee, they will give 80% of it to a pro-life organization. Wow, that's 80%. realestateforlife.org, 877-LIFE, US 1.
And we are back, and we are having a great time talking about the Crusades. We're digging our hand into the mailbag. We've been having such a wonderful time with the incredible, the expert, my dear friend, Allan Ruhl. We're talking about the Crusades, and one particular question that did come up earlier, and I'm trying to find it. It's a great one by our near and dear friend, St. Francis Babytoe. He had asked, and I hope I'm not butchering this, did the Varangian Guard fight in the Crusades since they were in Byzantium? I'm not sure if you know what that means. I'm pretty sure you probably do, man. As you know all this stuff. What would your answer be to that?
Yeah, they were part of the defense of Constantinople in the Fourth Crusade, but unfortunately they weren't able to save the city from the Crusaders. I could take off at well, for those who don't know, the Varangian Guard were a group of soldiers in the Byzantine Empire.
Oh, okay.
When I believe they come when Russia converts to Christianity in the late 900s. It's through contact with the Byzantine emperor, and they, as kind of like a token of the agreement, they pledged these soldiers. Now, the Varangian Guard were, although they're Slavs originally, they're eventually replaced by recruits. Like there's Greek, there's some English and French in there. They're a group of mercenaries, right? And they're loyal. Like if you pay them, they'll do what you say. Like there's some people that if you pay them to attack someone, and the person being attacked will be like, I'll pay you twice as much to go and stop. A lot of people will take it, but the Varangian Guard weren't. They were known for their loyalty. They were okay soldiers, right? And then yeah, so they were defending the city in the Fourth Crusade. Unfortunately, they couldn't stop the Crusaders. They're referred to as the axe wielders if you read the chronicles, because they have like huge axes, right? They didn't have swords, right? And so,
wow.
At this point, getting back to the Fourth Crusade, Marzophilus is crowned as Alexius V, and the city has their champion. But what happens now is in April, I want to say April, I can't remember the exact day. Is it April 12th? Sometime in April. Alexius V tries to attack the Crusaders on land, and he is just obliterated. His force, he barely gets back into the city alive. And then not long after that, the Crusaders attack the land walls, the French Crusaders. The Venetians in the Golden Horn attack the seawall, and they manage to get to the seawall, to breach it. And they take a bunch of towers in the city, and at this point, Alexius V flees because he knows that they breach the walls. It's only a matter of time until the city falls. The Venetians take the city. They open the door. The French knights come in, and the casualties are actually very low. There's a few casualties, but they're actually very low. But the looting was immense, because keep in mind, the Byzantines owed them money.
Sure.
and they were going to pay themselves plus a little more, and by a little I mean a lot more. Um, yeah, they stole icons, they stole relics. Like, there's a reason why John Chrysostom's relics are in the Vatican.
Right.
He wasn't a pope, John Chrysostom. He was the Bishop of Constantinople. Why
Sure.
isn't he in Crusaders brought it back, right? And then you have people like, and if you go to Venice today, remember half the Crusaders are Venetian. There, if you go Saint Mark's Cathedral there at the square in Venice, there's these bronze horses. In fact, you can type this in to Google. They were taken from a church in Constantinople. Yeah, there's a ton of this stuff. Shroud of Turin was taken too.
Wow.
Yeah, and like a whole bunch of relics and icons and a lot of money were taken. And there are some lies that come from people who don't know anything. They say, oh, to mock the Orthodox Christians, the Crusaders put a prostitute on the patriarchal throne. That's not true. If you read the Chronicle, a prostitute went and sat on the throne. It doesn't say the Crusaders put her there. That's a myth.
Okay, so that's a complete lie then.
Yeah, like there was a prostitute who sat there.
Sure, but they didn't put her there. They didn't sit her there.
Yeah, they didn't put her there. You know, she just did that amid the looting. And yeah, they managed to take a bunch of stuff. And long story short, they occupied the city until 1261. Some interesting stuff happens. Remember, you have two emperors at this time who have fled and are wandering around. They eventually get together, Alexius III and Alexius V. And they're like, let's form an alliance to get Constantinople back. And so they form an alliance. But Alexius III betrays Alexius V and has him blinded. So he's wandering the countryside blind. And then he's picked up by a patrol of Crusaders, take him back to Constantinople. They take him to a pillar, and they throw him off the pillar and kill him.
Wow.
And that pillar, according to one source, used to belong to a stylite. You know, those saints who would go on the pillars for like 30 years. It used to belong to one of them, but then they, at that point, the stylite wasn't there anymore. So they throw him off and kill him. Then there's Alexius III. He lasted for a while longer. He doesn't die till like, I think 1217 or something, but he can't get any potency to get it back. So then at this point, you have a bunch of states. It's not like all of they're all against the Latin occupation of Constantinople, but they're not all aligned because they're also fighting with each other. You have a group in Nicaea who set up shop there, a group in Trebizond, and then you have the Despotate of Epirus. And then eventually Nicaea, like you have these battles, like in 1257, the Battle of Pelagonia, which has one group consolidate power. And in 1261, the Crusaders left the door open, and a small troop of Greek soldiers from Nicaea comes in and takes the city. And that's the end of that. But and unfortunately, it was always a weak empire. But according to the 15th century, now a lot of people will say that, because the empire was so weak, it just left the door open and it was easy pickings for the Turks a couple hundred years later. No, if you read Critouvoulous, which is a Greek biographer in the 15th century of the Turkish Sultan, Mehmed the Conqueror, he said that's not true at all. He said it retained its former glory. And it's true. If you take a look at the map in like 1300, they still own about a third of Anatolia. They still own a bunch of land in Greece.
Wow, I didn't know
They don't
that.
have Trebizond anymore. Yeah, no, and things only start getting bad for them when in the early 1300s, when they hire a group of Spanish mercenaries, the Grand Catalan Company, but they and they're not the greatest mercenaries. They end up doing a lot of damage to the empire. And actually, there's actually a very good primary source on their expedition. You can buy on Amazon. It's not too expensive, but yeah. So it's not start to get weak. In fact, in the 1330s, they in the 1330s, the Byzantine Empire, they lose their last holdings in Anatolia, in the province of Bithynia, which is Nicaea and Nicomedia.
Nicaea and Nicomedia. Okay.
Yeah, so important cities. I think they might have a spec here, a spec there. The city of Philadelphia maybe, but the point is, at that point they're completely out of Anatolia, but they still last 110 more years at that point. Now, sorry, we're getting off topic.
I do want to pump the brakes a little bit. We're going to have to leave it at that there. And the only reason is we'll definitely have you back to cover a lot more, but we got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes. And I want to give you the final minute and a half, 2 minutes to plug in. Where can people find the brainiac that is Allan Ruhl, and anything you might want to put a plug in for, my friend? I'd love to give you this final minute and a half, 2 minutes to do so.
Sure. My name's Allan Ruhl, Allan, last name Ruhl. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on X. You can find me on Substack. I'm doing a lot on Substack lately, including a lot of stuff surrounding the schism in 1054. I love medieval history. I like other kinds of history too, but I focus mainly on the medieval stuff. And right now I'm doing a lot of stuff on the schism with the primary sources. And yeah, so go check me up on Substack. You can become a free subscriber. If you're feeling very generous, you can be a paid subscriber. But yeah, no, I got a lot of stuff there, including an interview I just did yesterday with the elite historian Charles Coulomb. So go check that stuff out.
Very, very cool. You got a lot of great stuff you're working on. And man, are you a wealth of knowledge. This was a phenomenal show. Just so much fun. A ton of information. And indeed, there's just impossible to do complete justice to a massive topic like the Crusades in an hour. But we promise that we'll bring you back again, Brother Allan. And for the audience, if you loved it, then let us know. And don't forget to get the Virgin Most Powerful Radio app. We'll be back again on the air in 2 days, on Friday morning, same time, 11 a.m. Central Time. And depending on where you're tuning in, of course, if you're maybe morning, evening, afternoon, thank you for being here with us. We love all of you all dearly. And of course, we've got a jam-packed schedule the rest of the day today. You're going to want to tune in, and you're going to want to get your hands on the Virgin Most Powerful Radio app so you can hear and tune in to everything that is on the air. Audience, we will be back with you again soon. God bless all of you all.
Saint Faustina's prayer for priests. I beg thee on behalf of the whole church. I beg thee on behalf of the whole church. And the light of thy spirit. Grant it love. And give power to the words of priests. And give that power to the words might be brought to repentance. So that hardened hearts might be brought to repentance. And return to thee, O Lord. Give us holy priests. Lord, thou thyself maintain them in holiness. Thou thyself maintain them in holiness. O divine and great high priest. O divine and great high mercy accompany them. May the power of thy mercy protect them from the devil's traps and snares, and protect them from the devil's traps and snares, for the souls which are continually being set for the souls. May the power of thy mercy, O Lord, shatter and bring to naught all that might shatter and bring to naught all that might tarnish the sanctity. For thou canst do all things. For thou canst do all things. Virgin most powerful, pray for us. Virgin most powerful, pray for us.
Virgin Most Powerful Radio. Virgin sharing the gospel with clarity and sharing the gospel with clarity and charity.